The attack. Trump's comments come after he said in recent days that members of that committee, quote, should go to jail. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Benny Thompson of Mississippi. He chaired the January 6th Select Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, can we get your reaction to Trump's comments that these January 6th pardons will apparently come right after he's sworn into office? He's saying within the first hour, maybe minutes.
Well, that's so unfortunate, Jim. As you know, what America and the whole world saw with their own eyes. You saw people breaking into the United States Capitol. You saw law enforcement being assaulted. And ultimately, we had several individuals who died because of that attack. And now, all of a sudden, the incoming president is talking about pardoning them, and they were heroes and patriots. And that's just not who we are as a country. And I wish he would rethink it, but obviously he's already gone public to say that he would.
And as I mentioned over the weekend, Trump was talking about the January 6th committee that you used to lead. Let's play some of what he had to say.
I think those people committed a major crime. Sir? And Cheney was behind it. Well, and so was Benny Thompson. For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that.
Congressman, Trump is saying you should go to jail. Are you worried about him or the FBI coming after you?
Well, you know, we are members of Congress. We operated based on our direction from Congress. There are specific laws that give security to members of Congress, and I hope the president would take that into consideration. But to be honest with you, Jim, we've not done anything wrong. What we did was, in fact, what the law prescribed, what the resolution we were given, and we were comfortable with our report. There's nothing that we omitted in the report or anything like that. So being in disagreement with a person is not a reason to lock them up. This is the house where we debate issues, where we debate laws. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. That doesn't mean you're illegal, and it doesn't mean that because you're wrong in the eyes of someone, you should go to jail. That's just so unfortunate, and that's not who we are as Americans.
And Congressman, apparently the White House is discussing preemptive pardons for people who may be targeted by Trump when he gets back in office. Do you want the president to offer some kind of pardon to you? As strange as it is to ask that question, I'm just wondering what you think.
Well, you know, the president, it's his prerogative. If he offers it to me or other members of the committee, I think I would accept it, but it's his choice. I think the staff of the committee, who did a wonderful job, I think the witnesses, who were primarily Republicans, did a great job under oath. We were not found to have perjured themselves or anything like that. There's nothing in the record that's not already on point. We've had 2 years of review by Republican chairpersons. They found nothing wrong. So there's nothing that we kept out of the record. There's nothing that we took out of the record. So we stand by the work of the committee. Our committee did a wonderful job. We shared it with the public, and all the public has to do is to read the report that we filed based on our report.
And I do want to ask you about the FBI director, Christopher Wray, announcing that he's stepping down. What's your reaction to that, and how concerned are you that someone like Kash Patel looks like might be replacing him?
Well, you know, that's for the Senate to decide. Some of the comments that Kash Patel has said I'd be very concerned about. I'm not aware of any weaponization of the FBI, law enforcement against anybody. My experience with Director Wray, he's been a straight-up person. He's called it like he saw it. I didn't agree with him all the time, but because I don't agree with him, there's no reason to cast dispersions on him or say for whatever reason he needs to be fired. I think governance requires tolerance. In this instance, the governance is not allowing tolerance to prevail, and by this president who only have as their mission is to keep him satisfied, and the rule of law may or may not prevail. As an individual who's been on Homeland Security since its inception, I'm very concerned that the potential for the rule of law is at risk under the next administration.
You're worried about this administration going after political opponents?
Oh, absolutely. I take them at their word. Retribution has been a constant comment out of the incoming president's mouth. I've never heard an elected official other than the incoming president talk about retribution. You know, usually when you run an election, if you win, it's over. If you lose, there are certain avenues available to you, but at the end of your debate or dissension, you move on. We are the shining star for every other government in America to try to be like. Retribution doesn't make us look good as a government.
All right. Congressman Benny Thompson, the